Hello, welcome to another episode of Sewing and Scripture. Today we're going to be going over the book of Esther, chapters 7 and 8. If you've been following along, we have done all the way up from chapters 1 through 6 so far. So if you haven't seen them yet, go back and watch them as well. We're starting to really get into the meat and potatoes and just the really good stuff of this of this story. So please go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to be reading from the NIV version of the Bible for the scriptures, but for the interpretation, I'm going to actually be using the King James Study Bible. So, in case you're wondering where that's coming from, you will have time to go ahead and look up in your Bible app or in your physical Bible the book of Esther, chapter 7, while we hear a word or testimony from our sponsor today. So, I was just at the grocery store and I was at the checkout, and the lady, the cashier behind the register, stopped me. And she said, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "I have to tell you something." Okay. She said 20 years ago, she went to a church, and she didn't know Jesus at the time. She didn't know anything about, she knew the basics that most people have an idea about, but she really didn't know God. And she said that she was praying, she was walking through the church and she was praying, "God, please show me a sign that there's somebody out there for me, that I belong somewhere." And she said she rounded the corner and she had this vision. She was shown this. 20 years ago, she saw this. Now, this is, I designed this not too long ago, like within the past 5 months. But she said that was the image I saw. And God was telling me, "I am the Lion of Judah. And there is someone for everyone. I am for everyone." And she felt just so compelled that she had to come up and share that story with me about how she found God and how she has found peace through Christ, just having the knowledge that God is the Lion of Judah, that this is the Lion of Judah, that this is, the Lion and the Lamb. It's all about God. It's all about Christ. It's all about Him, and He is for everyone. We are not alone. And that just really hit me. So once again, that's foxthepatriot.com. They do support the channel, so if you're enjoying our content, please go support them so that they can continue to support us. Also, if you are enjoying this content, again, be sure to like this video, subscribe to this video, hit that notification bell so YouTube knows that you actually want to watch this video or future videos, and leave me a comment below. Just let me know you're here, even if it's just a little smiley face or a hello. Just say hi. So now, let's go ahead and get into this. Chapter 7 of the book of Esther. But first, like we've been doing for the past several chapters since we began, we're going to do a slight recap. For anybody who may not have seen any of the other videos or is not familiar with what's going on in the story, we're going to let you know and get you caught up. So Esther was made queen after Vashti was banished. Vashti was the former queen. Mordecai overhears a plot to assassinate the king and tells Esther. Mordecai is Esther's guardian and cousin. Mordecai's name is written in the king's chronicles as someone deserving of reward. Haman, who is the king's top advisor, is given honor, but Mordecai refuses to bow down to him. Haman convinces the king that there are people in the empire who need to be exterminated, and is given the king's signet ring to initiate the process. So a signet ring, in case you're not familiar, is basically the seal of the king. So anything that has the king's seal on it, that is the king's word. Mordecai asks Esther to go to the king and beg for the lives of her people. Haman is forced to honor Mordecai. So if you look back at point 3, again, Mordecai's name was written in the Chronicles as someone deserving reward. Well, finally, the king has gotten around to honoring Mordecai, and Haman is the one who has to do that, even though he hates Mordecai. Esther invites the king and Haman to 2 separate banquets. Right now, we are currently getting ready to go into the second banquet in chapter 7. Haman had plans to murder Mordecai, but his plans have kind of been foiled now by the fact that the king has made him honor Mordecai. So it's just getting more complicated for Haman. So now let's see more what's going on in chapter 7 at the second banquet. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked, Queen Esther, what is your petition? I will give it to you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. So the second day is the second banquet of Esther. And so the first banquet happened on one day, and then the next day they came back for the second one. And she is asked a second time, what is your petition? She asks to be spared along with her people. She finally identifies herself with the people of Israel who have been sold to be destroyed. So this is the first time the king is even hearing that she is Jewish. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing? Esther said, an adversary and enemy, this vile Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house? As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, a pole reaching to a height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house. He had it set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, impale him on it. So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury was subsided. They covered Haman's face, as the ancients often did to those who were about to be executed. So it's not, when I first read this, I was like, as soon as the king's word left his mouth, and then I didn't pay attention to the fact there was a period there, they covered his face. So the cover of his face is like, like they blindfolded him, they put a hood over him. Something was done to dehumanize him, to take him away for execution. Now, again, like I said, this is the NIV version, and in this they're referencing a pole and impalement. In the New King James Version and the version I grew up with, they referenced it as a gallows and hanging. So if you're noticing those discrepancies, it's just about the manner of the execution. That is the discrepancy. It's not the fact that he was executed, or that this was set up as a form of getting rid of Mordecai to begin with, and that Haman had basically erected his own method of execution. That's more what is important here. So if you're getting hung up on the whole, well, one version says one way and one version says the other way, that's not really what the point is. The point is Haman, in his blindness and his blind hatred for Mordecai, actually was the engineer of his own destruction. So that was chapter 7. Now let's see what happens in chapter 8. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed him over Haman's estates. So now Mordecai he's getting all these promotions and recognition. Now that Esther had revealed her nationality to Xerxes, she was happy to present Mordecai to the king as her guardian and cousin. Mordecai was given the signet ring and was appointed chief minister of the empire. So he had a pretty important job. Same job Haman just had. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Jews. So again, remember, their laws, once they're placed into law, they're irrevocable. Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. In spite of Haman's death and Mordecai's exaltation, the Jews were still doomed to destruction in an irreversible decree. If it pleases the king, she said, and if he regards me with favor and thinks it the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see distress fall upon my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family? King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have impaled him on the pole he set up. Now write another decree in the king's name in behalf of the Jews, as seems best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked. So Xerxes reminds her of his favor towards her and that he loves her. He's given her all of Haman's estates. He's placed Mordecai in this high position. And it's obvious that he finds her very, it's even said back in chapter 2 that he was attracted to her. He fell in love with her. But he adds that no one, not even the king of Persia himself, had the power to reverse the laws of the Medes and Persians. Nevertheless, Mordecai had the full right to issue a counter decree in the king's name, which would be just as irreversible as the one issued by Haman. At once the royal secretaries were summoned. On the 23rd day of the 3rd month, the month of Sivan, they wrote out all Mordecai's orders to the Jews and to the satraps, governors, and nobles of the 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. These orders were written in the script of each province and the language of each people, and also to the Jews in their own script and language. So they made sure everybody knew how to read what was going on. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent them by mounted couriers who rode fast horses, especially bred for the king. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed for the Jews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. Mordecai's counter decree was issued June of 474 BC, a little over 2 months after the first decree was issued, allowing more than 8 months for the Jews to prepare their defenses. The couriers riding the royal horses went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. When Mordecai left the king's presence, he was wearing royal garments of blue and white, a large crown of gold, and a purple robe of fine linen. And the city of Susa held a joyous celebration. For the Jews, it was a time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor. In every province and in every city to which the edict of the king came, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and celebrating. And many people of other nations became Jews because fear of the Jews had seized them. So not only are the Jews celebrating, but people are actually converting to Judaism during this time also. So there were, if you think about it, a lot of demographic changes taking place in the empire because with all these people converting to Judaism, just because they were afraid of what would happen to them if they were even perceived as an enemy of the Jews. So, yeah, a time of great rejoicing was happening during this period of time. I hope you're enjoying these Bible studies. We are going to be continuing our journey through the book of Esther. The last 2 chapters are chapters 9 and 10. 10 is only 3 verses long, so we are going to put 9 and 10 together, even though 9 is a relatively longer chapter. 10 is super short, so there's no sense in making a video just for 3 verses. So I'm going to just go ahead and tack that on to the end of chapter 9. So come back next week, and we will be covering the end of the book of Esther. And again, go ahead and share these videos with others. You never know who needs a word from God today. So, and finally, go ahead and visit our sponsor, because again, they are keeping this channel alive currently. So please go support them as well. I hope you have a great and wonderful and blessed day. We'll see you next week.